Welcome to Craving the Heat, where desire takes the lead and every story leaves you wanting more. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments and keep up with our latest naughty stories. It had been almost 5 years since I had last seen her. Life had a way of moving forward, but memories had a way of lingering in the corners of your mind, stubbornly refusing to fade. I convinced myself that time had dulled the sharp edges of what we once shared, that the past was a chapter one had closed. I had rebuilt my life, forged routines, met new faces, but deep down, a quiet part of me had always remained tethered to her. Her name was Isabel. I had met her during a period of my life that was both exhilarating and reckless, full of ambition, late nights, and impulsive decisions. She was magnetic in a way that made the world around her fade. A presence that demanded attention without asking for it. She had been married then, and I had been naive enough to believe that certain lines would never be crossed. But as with so many things in life, desire doesn't heed rules. We had stolen moments in the back of her car, brief, urgent encounters at cafes when her husband traveled for work, and quiet evenings where the world seemed to pause for just the two of us. Every glance, every brush of skin, every whispered word was a rebellion against propriety. I knew the risks, but there had been a force between us that felt irresistible, a gravitational pull that neither time nor circumstance could weaken. And then it ended. We parted not because the fire had died, but because the reality of our lives demanded it. Isabel returned to our marriage, and I retreated into my own world. We promised nothing, avoided contact, and let the memory of what we had mean something sacred and untouchable. I told myself it was for the best. That longing could be survived with distance. And for a while, I believed I had succeeded, until the day she walked into my apartment. It was a mundane evening, the kind where the weight of work and routine had settled heavily on me. The city outside my window glimmered under the soft yellow glow of streetlights, and I was lost in thought, nursing a glass of whiskey that had grown warm. The doorbell rang, and I assumed it was a neighbor or a delivery until I opened it and saw her. Isabel stood there, her coat still damp from the drizzle outside, her hair curling slightly at the ends. Time had changed her, yes, subtle lines. At the corners of her eyes, a maturity in her posture, but it had not dimmed the pull she exerted over me. In that instant, everything I had carefully constructed in my life felt fragile, unimportant. My heart, long thought dormant, recognized her before my mind could even process her presence. "Hi," she said softly, her voice the same melody. I had never forgotten. I stepped aside, suddenly aware of how little space there was between us, the faint perfume that immediately brought back every stolen memory. "Isabel," I managed, my voice catching. I didn't expect you." "I know," she said, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "I wasn't sure I should come." We sat in silence at first, the kind of silence that speaks volumes. Her eyes searched mine as if she were trying to measure the years and the distance between us, trying to see if anything had changed, if the fire still burned. And I knew without doubt that it did. Over the next few hours, words tumbled out. Between us, hesitant at first, then with growing urgency. She spoke of her life, the routines, the compromises, and the parts of herself she had felt slipping away in the quiet moments of marriage. I spoke of my own struggles, my successes, my loneliness. Each confession, each laugh, each pause carried an intimacy that had been cultivated over years of absence and unspoken longing. The tension between us became almost unbearable, an invisible thread pulling us closer. When she leaned forward to adjust a lamp, our hands brushed. That single fleeting touch ignited a memory, a spark, and before either of us realized it, we were holding each other. "I've missed this," she whispered against my shoulder, her breath warm, familiar. "Me too," I admitted, my hands tracing the curve of her back, feeling the warmth and life that I had yearned for every day we were apart. That night, we didn't talk about morality, consequences, or the world outside my apartment. We only talked in touch and breath and whispered names. It was reckless, Yes, and we both knew it, but the need, the longing, the years of suppressed desire demanded release. Every kiss, every embrace, every sigh was a reclamation of the time we had lost. For the next few weeks, our connection deepened with a dangerous rhythm. We met in secret, every encounter a carefully choreographed dance to avoid detection. There were moments of pure passion in my apartment, quiet mornings where we sipped coffee and traced patterns on each other's skin, and evenings where we simply held hands and shared stories until sleep overtook us. Each encounter carried a mix of bliss and guilt, a cocktail that only heightened the intensity. Isabel's husband was unaware, of course, but the tension between duty and desire hung over every decision she made. And I, though fully aware of the infidelity, could not deny the way her presence filled the hollow spaces in my life. We were both aware of the danger, yet powerless to resist. Inevitably, the secret weighed on us. Each meeting carried the risk of exposure. Neighbors, colleagues, or even Daniel, her now-grown son, could inadvertently discover the truth. The thrill of near discovery only amplified our connection, making every kiss and touch feel urgent, vital, and irreplaceable. Climax of our secret came one rainy night. Isabel arrived unexpectedly, drenched and breathless, unable to resist the pull any longer. We embraced, the storm outside mirroring the tempest within. Our passions spilled over into hours of unrestrained intimacy, a catharsis for the years of longing and restraint. That night, every boundary dissolved. There were no titles, no roles. Only two hearts colliding with a force that defied morality and time. But morning came with clarity. As she dressed and prepared to leave, the weight of reality settled over us once more. "I can't stay," she whispered, tears glinting in her eyes. "But I couldn't not come." "I know," I said, holding her tightly, memorizing the curve of her face, the scent of her hair, the warmth of her body. "I'll remember this every moment." She left, and I watched her disappear into the drizzle, leaving behind the echo of passion, longing, and a love that could never exist in the light of day. Yet somehow, the memory of that night, her walk into my apartment, the spark that reignited the fire in my heart, remained as vivid as ever. Years later, I still carry that night with me. Life continued, as it must, with responsibilities, routines, and moments of fleeting happiness. But whenever I see a rainy evening, hear a familiar laugh, or catch a hint of her perfume in the wind, I am transported back to that night. Isabel remains, in my memory and my heart, as the woman who defied time, morality, and circumstance to remind me of the depths of desire, the power of longing, and the indelible impact of a love that could never fully be mine. And though the world never knew, and her life returned to its course, I will always remember the night she walked into my apartment, and I knew she was still in my heart. The days following Isabel's unexpected visit were unbearable. I went through the motions of my life, work, errands, casual greetings with neighbors, but every routine felt hollow. My apartment, once a place of quiet solitude, had become a shrine of memory, haunted by the warmth of her presence and the echo of her laughter. I found myself lingering by the window, imagining her crossing the threshold again, feeling that same thrill, that same ache that had been dormant for years. Then, almost inevitably, she called. Her voice on the phone was soft, hesitant, yet unmistakably filled with the same electricity I remembered. "I can't stop thinking about that night," she said. I shouldn't reach out, but I had to hear your voice. My pulse surged at her admission. "Neither can I replied, though part of me feared the consequences. We made a tentative plan to meet, agreeing on a quiet cafe late in the evening, where the risk of recognition was minimal. When we saw each other again, the world outside ceased to exist. Isabel's presence was magnetic. The city lights cast a golden glow over her hair, and her eyes, those eyes that had haunted my dreams, searched mine, as if asking permission to ignite the storm once more. We spoke briefly, ostensibly about trivialities, but the tension under every word, every glance, was palpable. When our hands brushed across the table, a shiver ran through me, and she looked away, a faint flush coloring our cheeks. We both knew the danger, yet neither of us cared. After that night, our secret meetings became a delicate dance of timing, caution, and ingenuity. We discovered new places to be alone, an abandoned loft above a bookstore, the quiet corners of a rarely visited museum, even the secluded rooftop of my building where the city stretched below us in sparkling oblivion. Each encounter was a mixture of urgency and reverence. Every touch, every kiss carried the weight of years, the thrill of rediscovery, and the forbidden nature of our passion. Isabel began sharing more of her personal struggles, how our marriage, while comfortable, had grown predictable and distant. Her husband was a kind, reliable man, devoted in his way, but he could never reach the part of her that craved passion, spontaneity, and emotional risk. And in those confessions, I felt both guilty and honored. Guilty because I was the source of her emotional rebellion, honored because she trusted me with the fragments of herself she had hidden for years. The emotional intensity grew in tandem with the physical. One evening, she arrived at my apartment, rain plastering her hair to her cheeks. She didn't knock. She simply appeared in the doorway, soaking wet, and whispered, "I had to see you." My hands instinctively drew her close. We embraced, the world outside reduced to the patter of rain and the low hum of the city. That night, we moved beyond whispered confessions and tentative kisses. We explored each other fully, our passion unrestrained, urgent, and desperate, as if we were trying to make up for all the time lost. Every touch, every movement, every gasp was a declaration of desire and need. We began to experiment with subtle ways of bringing our worlds together without detection. She would leave small notes at my apartment, scented with her perfume, each message a coded expression of longing. I would reply in kind, slipping letters under her door or leaving them in her mailbox, each one charged with yearning and secrecy. The tension between desire and the risk of discovery created a pulse that carried through every encounter, making each moment with her feel like both a thrill and a gamble. Inevitably, near discoveries added to the storm. One afternoon, while Isabel was helping me organize my apartment, a neighbor knocked unexpectedly. We froze mid-embrace, her body pressed against mine as we pretended to be discussing furniture placement. My heart pounded with adrenaline, and when the door closed, we collapsed onto the couch in a mixture of laughter, relief, and renewed urgency. It was in these moments, close calls, stolen touches that our bond deepened. Fear made our passion more intense, more vital, more consuming. As months passed, the affair became a paradoxical blend of secrecy and intimacy. We shared everyday routines, meals, coffee, small errands while maintaining the veneer of ordinary life, yet our eyes, our gestures carried private meaning. I learned the small details of her life, the books she read before bed, the scent of her favorite candle, the way she hummed while cooking. She learned the subtle expressions of my moods, the way my hands fidgeted when I was anxious, the cadence of my laughter when I was genuinely happy. Our connection had evolved into a profound intimacy, one that transcended physical attraction. Yet, the weight of reality was always present. Isabel's husband remained blissfully unaware, but I could see the strain it placed on her conscience. She loved him in a quiet, dutiful way, and I respected that, even as it added another layer of complexity to our clandestine affair. We had to navigate not only our desire, but the ethical boundaries of a life we had chosen to defy. The push and pull of love and morality, risk and reward, became an unending tension that both tormented and exhilarated us. One night, after a particularly heated encounter on my apartment rooftop, she rested her head against my chest, her hair damp with city rain, and whispered, "I am afraid we're playing with fire." I stroked her hair, feeling the steady beat of her heart against mine. "I know," I murmured, "but I can't stay away." And in that moment, we both acknowledged the truth. What we shared was dangerous, unsanctioned, and impossible to sustain, yet utterly irresistible. Eventually, the inevitable confrontation with reality loomed. Isabel's husband, sensing subtle changes, began asking more questions, noticing small absences, fleeting expressions of longing in her eyes. Each conversation with him was a delicate negotiation, a tightrope walk between deception and honesty. And I knew that the longer we continued, the higher the risk of everything unraveling. The final chapter of our affair unfolded one rainy, moonlit night. Isabel came to my apartment one last time, tears glinting in her eyes, hands trembling. As they found mine, we embraced a desperate, clinging embrace that spoke of longing, fear, and the inevitability of parting. "I can't stay," she whispered, her voice breaking. "But I had to see you one last time." We made love that night with a recklessness born of finality. Every kiss, every touch, every whispered confession, a declaration of the depth of our forbidden love. When morning came, we parted with lingering touches, tears, and promises that could never truly be fulfilled. She left, and I watched her disappear into the rain, carrying with her the fire that had consumed my heart, leaving behind memories that would never fade. Years later, life continued in its quiet, inevitable rhythm. Isabel remained in my memory, as a constant a reminder of desire, passion, and the intoxicating thrill of forbidden love. Every quiet street, every drizzle of rain, every sunset carried a trace of her presence. And though our lives had moved on and we had returned to our separate worlds, the memory of her walking into my apartment that night and the knowledge that she was still in my heart remained an indelible, unshakable truth. The weeks following, Isabel's final visit to my apartment were unbearable. Every corner of my home felt haunted by her presence, the faint scent of her perfume still lingering, the echo of her laughter in the air. I would catch myself staring at the doorway, imagining her stepping through with that same quiet confidence, that smile that could both console and ignite. Nights were worse. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, tracing the contours of her face in my mind, remembering the warmth of her hands and the heat of her embrace. Then impossibly she returned. One rainy afternoon, I found her standing in the hallway outside. My apartment, her hair wet, cheeks flushed, eyes searching mine. "I couldn't stay away," she murmured, and just like that, the dam broke. We didn't speak of rules, consequences, or morality. Those words were irrelevant when the electricity between us flared. We embraced in silence the world outside. Disappearing as the rain drummed against the windows, our meetings became a complex game of timing, planning, and secrecy. We discovered secluded corners of the city where we could meet without fear, an abandoned warehouse with creaking wooden floors, a hidden garden behind a library, the rooftop of my building where the city stretched out below us, lights twinkling. Like stars. Each encounter was a mix of urgency, reverence, and the thrill of near discovery. Every touch, kiss, and whispered confession carried the weight of years, and the forbidden nature of our passion made it almost unbearably intense. Isabel shared more of her life with me than she ever had before. Her marriage, she admitted, was comfortable but stagnant. Her husband was kind, reliable, devoted, but he could never reach the part of her that craved risk, spontaneity, and raw passion. And in those confessions, I felt both guilty and honored. Guilty because I was the source of her rebellion. Honored because she trusted me with the fragments of herself she had hidden for years. The emotional intensity of our affair was matched only by the physical. One night, she arrived at my apartment in a soaked trench coat, her hair plastered to her face. She didn't knock, she simply appeared, as if she had always belonged there. I pulled her inside, and the rain became a background symphony to our reunion. That night, we moved beyond whispered confessions and tentative kisses. Every touch was electric, every sigh a promise, every embrace a surrender. It was as if the years apart, the moral constraints, and the fear of discovery had only deepened our desire. Our affair expanded into a delicate choreography of secrecy. Notes slipped under doors, texts coded in playful language, fleeting glances. Across crowded streets, all became our way of sustaining intimacy without exposure. Each small interaction carried the thrill of risk, the intoxication of shared history, and the weight of forbidden love. The tension escalated with near discoveries. Once, a neighbor knocked on my door while Isabel was in my living room. We froze mid-embrace, hearts pounding, pretending to be arranging furniture. When the door closed, we collapsed into each other, laughing, gasping, trembling with the thrill of narrowly avoided exposure. These incidents only heightened the urgency of our connection. Danger became fuel for desire. Months passed and our bond deepened. We shared small routines, morning coffee in silence, drives with music spilling from the speakers, secret jokes whispered in crowded rooms. But beneath the mundane was a simmering intensity, a constant undercurrent of longing and secrecy. Every ordinary gesture, the touch of a hand, the brush of a shoulder, the tilt of a head was charged with private meaning. Yet, reality loomed relentlessly. Isabel's husband began to sense subtle changes. Minor absences, fleeting expressions of longing, a distracted tone in her voice he noticed. Each time he came close to discovering the truth, our hearts raced. Our pulses quickened, and our clandestine connection felt both more thrilling and more dangerous. Winter brought its own layer of intimacy and tension. Snow blanketed the city, turning streets into silent pathways. We found solace in secluded locations, a small cabin she rented under the pretense of a weekend getaway, the warmth of the fireplace accentuating our closeness. There, wrapped in blankets and shared confession, we explored not only our bodies, but the emotional depths of our desire. We spoke of dreams deferred, of lives half-lived, of the loneliness that had driven us into each other's arms. Every touch was both healing and intoxicating. By spring, the risk of exposure became unbearable. Isabel's husband grew more suspicious. A glance, a question, a pause in conversation hinted at the encroaching danger. Our encounters became rarer but more intense, each meeting a desperate attempt to grasp what we could no longer hold for long. One particularly poignant evening, we watched the sunset from my apartment balcony, fingers intertwined, silent tears tracing paths down her cheeks. "I can't keep doing this," she whispered. "But I can't let go either." The affair ultimately reached its bittersweet climax. A final rendezvous on a rain-soaked night found us clinging to each other as though the world itself might collapse. The city beyond the balcony faded into irrelevance. We kissed with a hunger and desperation born of finality, whispered confessions, of love and regret mingling with the patter of rain. When morning came, we parted, knowing that the passion that had consumed us could never be sustained openly. Years later, the memory of Isabel lingers. The smell of rain on asphalt, the warmth of a hand pressed into mine, the soft cadence of her laughter, each sensation recalls her. She remains untouchable in the world, yet permanent in my heart. Every stolen glance, every quiet encounter, every memory of our forbidden love continues to echo through my life, a testament to the consuming, dangerous, an unforgettable power of desire that defies rules, time, and morality, even now decades. Later, the city streets, the quiet apartments, the secluded rooftops, all of it calls her name. Isabel, who walked into my life unexpectedly, shattered the boundaries I had believed inviolable, and left a permanent mark on my heart that no passage of time can erase. She was forbidden, untouchable, and yet wholly mine in the hidden world we shared, a world that existed beyond reason, consequence, and the reach of anyone else. After that final rainy night, life tried to resume its ordinary rhythm, but for both of us, ordinary had become unbearable. Each day I walked the city streets, I felt her presence in every passing shadow, every flicker of movement, every echo of laughter that reminded me of her. Even my apartment, once a sanctuary, seemed hollow without her. And yet, the memory of her, the feel of her hand in mine, the brush of her lips against mine, the warmth of her body pressed close, remained alive, almost suffocating in its intensity. Then, impossibly, she returned again. A chance meeting on a crowded street corner led to a brief conversation that was electric in its restraint. Her eyes searched mine, sparking that familiar flame, and before either of us could protest, we had slipped into the nearest cafe. There, among the hum of casual patrons, we spoke in guarded whispers, our hands brushing occasionally, sending currents of memory through our veins. The desire was still there, unbroken, And it felt more urgent than ever because now, after months apart, the ache had only grown. We began to see each other in secret once more. Each meeting was a carefully orchestrated event, a delicate dance to avoid suspicion. We used disguises, different times, different neighborhoods, brief phone calls with coded language. Each encounter carried the thrill of being caught, the delicious danger of loving in the shadows. The city became our playground and our prison, a labyrinth of secret corners, hidden gardens, empty rooftop terraces, and forgotten libraries dot as the months passed. Our affair deepened not only in intensity, but in emotional complexity. Isabel revealed parts of herself she had never shared before, her fears, her regrets, and the dissatisfaction that had simmered quietly beneath the surface of her seemingly perfect life. She spoke of the loneliness of a marriage that had grown comfortable but hollow, the quiet ache for someone who understood her fully, who could match her intensity. I, in turn, opened myself to her entirely, confessing vulnerabilities I had hidden from the world. One particular evening, we met at the edge of the river where the city lights reflected like gold on the dark water. She wore a coat too large for her, hair damp from the mist, and the sight of her took my breath away. We sat side by side on a bench, silent at first, letting the cool breeze and distant hum of the city wrap around us. Then she turned to me, eyes glistening, and whispered, "I've thought of you every single day." I took her hand in mine, feeling the tremor in her fingers, the unspoken acknowledgement of everything we had shared, and everything we could never openly claim. Our encounters became increasingly daring. A secluded cabin rented under the guise of a weekend getaway became our escape from the constant scrutiny of everyday life. There, in the warmth of a crackling fire, we explored each other's bodies and minds with a hunger fueled by months of longing. Every touch was deliberate, every kiss an exploration, every whispered confession a declaration of forbidden love. We existed entirely for each other in those stolen hours, ignoring the consequences, ignoring the world outside those walls, but the danger was never far. Isabel's husband began to notice subtle changes, the way she hesitated before answering a question, the fleeting moments of distraction, the way her gaze lingered in ways that never had before. Every near discovery sent adrenaline coursing through our veins. We became experts in concealment, coded text messages, elaborate alibis, whispered signals, and meticulously timed encounters. Yet, each risk heightened our desire, making every stolen moment feel more urgent and more vital. By winter, our passion was as intense as ever, yet tinged with melancholy. Snow blanketed the city, muting sound and movement, providing both cover and isolation. We found new hiding places: a library, basement, the quiet hallway of a late-night diner, even the top floor of a parking garage where the lights flickered. Every kiss was laden with a thrill of secrecy, every embrace a rebellion against a life we could not fully claim. The emotional stakes grew higher with each passing week. Isabel's confessions became darker, tinged with guilt, longing, and despair. "I don't know how long I can keep living two lives," she whispered one night, her head resting against my chest as we sat on the rooftop overlooking the city. I held her tightly, feeling the tremor in her body, the weight of her conflict, and realized that our love, no matter how passionate, existed on the knife's edge of ruin. Spring brought a new tension. Isabel's husband's suspicions intensified, and we were forced into longer periods of separation. Our encounters became fleeting, furtive touches in crowded streets, glances across rooms filled with people, whispered words passed under the cover of night. The scarcity of our meetings made the longing unbearable, but also deepened the intensity. Every stolen second, every accidental brush of fingers, every shared smile became a private universe unto itself. Finally, after months of this precarious balance, we had to face reality. A final weekend at the cabin was arranged an escape from the world, a farewell to a love that could not be sustained openly. The fire burned low, casting flickering shadows across the walls, and we clung to each other with desperate urgency. Every kiss, every caress, every whispered promise carried the weight of finality. "This is all we can have," she murmured, her breath warm against my ear. But I will never forget you. When the morning came, we parted reluctantly, tears. In our eyes, hearts heavy with longing and loss. Life returned to its rigid structure, to obligations, appearances, and responsibilities. Isabel remained untouchable in the world, yet permanently inscribed in my heart. Every sunset, every rain-soaked street, every quiet moment alone brought memories flooding back the warmth of her body, the fire in her eyes, the forbidden intensity of a love that had consumed us both. Years later, I still feel her presence. A cafe table, a library staircase, the quiet hum of the city at night, they all call her name. She was forbidden, unattainable, yet wholly mine in those stolen, secret moments. Isabel, who walked into my apartment and my heart left. A permanent mark that no passage of time can erase, a testament to the enduring power of desire, the complexity of love, and the intoxicating thrill of forbidden intimacy.